I have been in Brooklyn, New York my whole life. So born and raised, I've been here with my family. I come from a Filipino and Egyptian background. So as you can imagine, both cultures love food. So it was a no-brainer that eventually I would end up having a food blog.
The Halal Food Podcast, brought to you by Halalrun, the #1 guide to halal eating options in the US, Canada, and the UK. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to the Halal Food Podcast. We interview the entrepreneurs and the talent powering the halal food industry in North America, and we also celebrate Muslims from all walks of life in general. New York City has the largest population of Muslims of any city in North America by number. And many of those Muslims are to be found in the borough of Brooklyn, or the BK. Today's guest, Laila El-Domyati, is one of the top halal food bloggers from Brooklyn, New York. She blogs on Instagram under the username Just Your Girl and Food. Laila has a great perspective because she actually comes from a family of food entrepreneurs. Her father runs a catering business in Manhattan's prestigious meatpacking business called Feast on Us, and it also has a lunch spot. So Laila comes from a family of food entrepreneurs and has a lot of great insight to share. Now, if you like this episode and like what you hear, please be sure to hit that like button and drop us a comment to stay in touch. Now, without further ado, let's jump to the conversation. And we're here live with Laila El-Domyati. Laila, assalamu alaikum. How are you today?
Walaikum assalam. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. We are so excited to have you on. It's a wonderful day in New York where you are and I am. A little cold, but but otherwise nice.
Yes. I don't mind the cold. It's the perfect time to eat good food. You stay indoors, cuddle up with your blanket. So I don't mind.
Yeah. Cold weather makes for vibrant halal food scenes.
Yes.
So, Laila, let's dive right in. Tell us a bit about your background. How long you've been in New York, where you were before that, and how you got into food blogging at your Instagram and other places. Just Your Girl and Food.
Yeah, okay, great. We're just diving in. So, I have been in Brooklyn, New York my whole life. So born and raised, I've been here with my family. I come from a Filipino and Egyptian background. So as you can imagine, both cultures love food. So it was a no-brainer that eventually I would end up having a food blog. But also, I'm also a child of a father that has a small business in food. So I think that's where my love came from. He has a catering company in the meatpacking district. Shout out to Feast on Us. They catered all my birthday parties growing up. And like that's where like my love of food came from. Like he taught us very early on how to admire flavors and all of that. So, it's been fun.
Let's give Papa El-Domyati more of a shout out. Can you tell us a bit more about his catering business?
Oh, yeah. Of course. Thank you for giving me the space for that too. So he has a catering company called Feast on Us, and he's been around close to 30 years now in the meatpacking district. He does have a storefront that's open 11 to 3 on a weekly basis. And he changes his menu every day. So he does use halal meat, so that's a plus. But he is big on catering. So he's been doing that for a long time. So since I was like a kid, I would say like maybe 7 years old, I was going with him on site for jobs and just like, really learning the food business. So it's always been fun. And it's something that like I was able to see the kitchen, see live action. So it's been an experience. And I think that's where like my love of food came from originally.
That's great. And how did you take that love of food and decide to channel it into becoming a halal blogger?
Yes, so I started Just Your Girl in Food about 5 years ago. And I think one of the things I will start off with is if you're starting any social media platform, you cannot expect instant success. So it's like a slow growth. And I think what I did is just like I enjoyed it. I enjoyed taking pictures of my food. I enjoyed admiring like the scene, like the food scene, and just like having fun. And it's always great to like bring someone along just to like enjoy good food. And the way I like land on different places is random. Sometimes it's just like it came up on my page, on my feed, and like I'm like, "Ah, I'm gonna check it out." So I think like starting a platform was really just for me, just to like collect all these like pictures, these recommendations, all of that, and just kind of like document my journey, checking things out, especially when I travel, when I'm just taking the ferry, the train across New York. Like it's just fun, you know? So I think that's where it came from. It just came from going on adventures. And then from there, I'm just trying to take it off.
That's awesome. Um, let's talk. You talked a bit about your mixed background, right? Egyptian as well as Filipino. What kinds of cuisines do you gravitate the most to or like the most?
Okay, so that's a difficult question for a food blogger, I would assume, but I gravitate towards savory food. And when I say savory, I think a lot of people mix that up with spicy. And I'm not crazy about spicy food. When I say savory, I'm looking for like flavors that my mouth will remember. So like I want to make sure 6 months from now that I'm craving that. So like I think and that could range. That could range from like, a 5 course meal to like something that I can just pick up and uh it could be anything, but I really gravitate towards a good sandwich. Like a good sandwich will convince me to come back over and over again. So, and I think like I like to think it's all in the bread and the sauce. Like sometimes meat, you could get away with like your meat not being marinated fully or whatever it is, but like a good bread can make such a difference with sandwich. And it's something I tell everyone. And I always argue with people over it. They're like, no, it's what's in the sandwich. And I'm like, no, a good bread can really convince me. So, but good sandwiches is what I'm usually looking for.
You said you were born and raised in the BK, and I'm a Manhattanite myself. Um, tell our audience about the halal food scene in Brooklyn. You can talk about other boroughs if you want, but in Brooklyn in particular, and how you've seen it change and evolve over the course of your life.
Yeah, so I think Brooklyn has so first of all, like I live in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, which has like your variety of halal eats, but I will say that Brooklyn has grown when it comes to like presentation of food and like just the scene of where you're eating, like the type of restaurants, the comfort, the setting, that has improved so much over the years where you're able to just really sit down and enjoy your meal. So I think that's what's happened over like the last, I would say like 5 to 10 years. And that's like a big deal. I think like having a spot that you could go for like a date night or like with your friends or like even with your family when you want to celebrate a big thing is like a big deal. So I think like the food scene in that sense has improved a lot. And like there's more variety, like you're more likely to find Brooklyn, like you're more likely to find like halal soul food or your choice of halal Chinese. And like, it's good to have those varieties because coming for like specific halal food is hard sometimes.
Speaking of which, um, I'm going to tell you something which I didn't tell you earlier, but I actually grew up in the Philippines.
Oh, no
So
way.
yeah, from the age of 5 till I came to the States for college. Um, so I've been in New York for over 20 years, and I'm still looking for a halal Filipino restaurant so I can get my pancit and adobo. Do you know of any, either in New York or in the region?
Unfortunately, no. I do not, but it's, that has is something I want. If there was one thing on my list that I want a halal restaurant for, it's a Filipino restaurant. And I mean, the best halal Filipino food I can get is at home at this point. So
So I think there's one of two options here. Either you gotta tell Mama El Domiati that I'm coming over one of these days, or you and I should start a halal Filipino restaurant in maybe Queens, in a neutral borough, right? In two
Yes.
England. All right,
Have you been
inshallah.
to Woodside? Woodside, Queens
I
for
have.
like yeah, so like they have, that's the Filipino community when it comes to the food scene. We just need to insert ourselves over there. That's that's the plan.
Exactly. Um, so while as we're talking about different kinds of food, we'd love to hear about some of your favorites because our audience loves when top food bloggers like yourself in the halal space just tell them what you love. So what are some of your top five? I think we were talking about momos earlier. So what are your top five momos in pick your borough?
Yeah. So I'm gonna choose Queens because that's where the Momo scene is. And I do want to shout out the Momo Crawl. I don't know if you've ever done it, but they have a Momo Crawl around September every year where you can go around Queens and try out every Momo place for $1. So you just literally give them $1, you get a Momo. So that is something I would recommend if somebody's new to the Momo scene, that is the way to introduce yourself to it. But my top five, I would start with like Momo Crave. They have like the best variety of momos. I think they're fully halal. They have like a lot of different flavors, and then I have Nepali Banchagar, which has like these delicious soup momos that are the best in the wintertime. I highly recommend. If you're cold today, go get it. And there's two food trucks, Mom's Momo and Amdo Momo, that are both really delicious and they're both fully halal. And the last one is Delhi Heights. And the reason why I have that one on the list is because you can also get your taste of samosas at the same time. So, if you want two kind of like appetizer like foods, like it's the perfect place to get that kind of combo.
Yeah, they're all great recommendations. I've been to Momo Crave, which is awesome.
Yes. Hmm.
And those two trucks, are they like there's a couple that I see on what is it, 73rd, whatever that main street in Jackson Heights is. I think one is parked there, right?
Yes, Mom's Momo is parked there, and Amdo Momo is sometimes there, but a lot of times they do move on like the parallel streets.
Okay. I will hunt and try them next time I'm there. So, okay. So we've heard about Lila's Momos in Queens. But
Yeah.
what about the BK? What are some of your favorite spots, halal spots that you like the most in Brooklyn?
Yeah, so I have my choice of comfort foods here that I love to go to. So this is like having a great day, I go. Having a bad day, I definitely go. But my top five right now, the first one I tried like about 3 months ago. It was called Yafa Cafe. It's in Sunset Park. They have this hanith sandwich that is so good. It's lamb hanith and the sauce is amazing. It's good hot, so I recommend you sit there. They have such a cute cafe. And then growing up in Brooklyn, my go-to spot was this deli called Al Noor Halal Deli. So it is like a quick bite. You grab a sandwich, grab a platter. I recommend it. It just has so many childhood memories for me. So that's on my list for sure. The Soul Spot is like a soul and Caribbean food spot. You get your mac and cheese, your jerk chicken, oxtail, all of that. They're fully halal, and I love them. Like their food is so great. It's and I do if you live in Brooklyn and you have jury duty, it's only a 5 minute walk from the courthouse. So that's a great choice, I think. And it like kind of evens out your jury duty. And then in Bay Ridge, Karam has great roasted chicken. That is great for dinner. I highly recommend. And then my ultimate comfort Chinese food is no pork halal on Atlantic Avenue or near Atlantic Avenue. Their fried wontons, I could eat them all day. Like so good.
There you have it, friends. Lila's top five comfort food picks in the BK. If you're ever there, you got to check them out. I will say no pork. The what's it called? No pork halal. The Chinese restaurant. That's right by the Barclays Center, right on
Yes.
Atlantic Avenue,
Yes.
right. The first time I saw it, I said that is the most genius name for a halal restaurant. Forget all subtlety. Just like pick your
To the
message and
point.
hammer it home.
It's so funny because every time someone visits me in New York too, I drive by it just so they can see that sign. And, I hope they know. I hope they know the genius they've created.
No, I think it's awesome. I mean, I want to know if I want to ask them. We'll have them on at some point. I want to ask them at some point. Does anyone walk in and say like, "Is your food halal?" Like that.
Yeah.
That I would love
Yeah, right.
they get that anyway. All right, Lila, sort of shifting gears a bit. We at Halalrun, we love celebrating all Muslims, right? We love the service that the halal restaurants provide to the community. We love when uh, individuals like yourself take it upon yourself to let the community know about great new uh, food options, and that's a service to everyone. And obviously, we love the Muslim community that that frequents these places. So we're all about celebrating each other. So along those lines, you are one of the most prominent halal food bloggers in the New York area. Who are, and I know the blogger community is awesome, right? A lot of them know each other and they're supportive. Who are some of the other halal bloggers that you know and you admire, either in the New York scene or other parts of the country?
Yeah, that is such a great question. So number one for me is Book of Dishes. She does Egyptian cooking videos, and her videos are super soothing. So even if you have no plans to cook those meals, they're just so fun to watch. So I love her page. Hint does such a good job of like presenting. And then I also love Amanda's plates. Amanda was on MasterChef, and when I saw her, I want to say like maybe 6 years ago on MasterChef, I was so excited to see a hijabi on TV. Like it made me so happy. It might have been longer than five. Time is just a concept at this point, but when I met her for the first time, I was so excited because I felt like I was meeting the president. Like it was so happy, but I still follow her until this day because her cooking videos are great. Her fashion is also good. Her colors are amazing, but um she has a great page. And then, of course, I have to shout out the queens of the food scene, Muslim foodies, because they're so great. They started something amazing. I love their honesty, and their reviews are usually on point. So I stand by them. I always recommend if somebody's looking for like a fully halal page and recommendations, they're good. They're a good page to follow.
Those are some awesome recommendations, and I urge our viewers to check all of them out. Um, so along those lines, Lila, we also like asking all our guests, outside of the food industry, who is one or two or three, any number of Muslim Americans who you admire and why.
Yeah. So other than like my food blog, my day job is like a public health in the public health sector. So like I work in healthcare, like I try to enrich communities, make sure they're getting their health education. So like one of my favorite Muslim Americans, like just when it comes to their knowledge and everything, is Abdul Sayed. And he was like such a prominent speaker on the news during COVID and during the pandemic. And he is from Michigan. And I think, like, from the health perspective, great. And another person is Ibtihaj Muhammad. And the reason why I love her so much is when I saw her fencing in the Olympics, it like blew my mind. Like seeing her hijabi out there on screen, playing for the American Olympics team was such a big deal for me. She has a Barbie doll out, which I was the first one to buy, and also just like she has a children's book out that I also like encourage everyone to recommend to their friends to have in their libraries if they have kids or even if they're a teacher. Like really grab it because it is such a heartwarming book. But those two people I think would make the top for me. Like I can remember them all the time.
Great, great picks, and I'm a huge fan of Ibtihaj as well. Um, I have two young daughters, 10 and 6, and I tried to get the first one to fence, and she didn't want to fence. But I was like, okay, even if you don't fence, you have to be like Ibtihaj. She's such a great example, such a great role model, and when she brought the flag out in the Olympics, I mean, that was such a moving moment for all of us.
Yeah, for sure.
So, you know, uh, you talked about public health, your career in public health and COVID. I think it's an interesting place to sort of to end up. So Lila, tell us actually a little bit more about your career, if you can or want to, about in public health, and also what during COVID you saw in the halal food scene, because COVID was a big seminal event for all of us, but also for the halal industry. So how did you tell us about your career in public health, and also how you saw public health, or how you saw COVID impact the halal food scene? For obviously there's challenges, but I think a lot of good came out of it as well.
Yeah, that's such a good question. So from the public, I have worked in early childhood and development, and like just like creating environments where families can thrive together, and just like, be able to support, and that parents can support their children express themselves in the best way possible. And I think that's like what I've been taking throughout my career, and that's something that like is dear to my heart. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, that was impacted a lot. People were either, we were stuck indoors, or like people were separated, and like whatever it is, like, it had an impact on that so much. And I think, in that part of my career, like working in public health, working population health, and also just being like trying to be an advocate for people to live like more enriching lives where they can like express themselves and be happy, or like be sad too, and but be able to talk to someone about it. And I think that was like one of my priorities in going into public health, just making sure, especially the Muslim community, can have a voice and be able to express themselves in a way that maybe like culture kind of like drove away from. Like, expressing emotions can be hard in some families, and it's like, oh, like we should be able to say, like, hey, like I'm not feeling that great, or I'm upset, or whatever, and like use our words. And I think that's like the angle that I've always tried to take. As for the food scene and the pandemic, I think we have to shout out all the small businesses that did come up during the pandemic, all the at home businesses. Like the amount of desserts I was able to order from people's homes was like amazing. And I think, people really got into new crafts, and like they started baking cakes and cookies, and like there was like bakeries. And I think even like I ventured into like chocolate making, and it was so much fun. But like obviously I'm gonna leave it to the professionals for now until I can have some more time in my schedule. But it was just so fun to see how creative people could be. And I think that's a positive thing that came from us staying home. It was like we were able to like do things that we might love, and try new, like just try things with your family. And that was something that I think impacted the food scene. But then at the same time, I will say, and this is my advice to everyone, like go support your small businesses, because they are still recovering from the pandemic. They were closed for so long. And this is coming from a child of a small business. And my dad, like, he was so creative during the pandemic. He worked with, like, he was like, I'm going to make things so that people will feel safer eating lunch boxes, whatever it is. And, he was so resilient throughout the process. And I could imagine so many small businesses were. And we have lost some small businesses and we have gained, but it's just like at the end of the day, let's support them as much as we can. And just try to buy something small. It doesn't have to be a large order, but like just try your best.
Alhamdulillah, I couldn't agree more with that. They're all heroes. Lila, thank you so much for joining us today. Our audience is going to love all that you had to share, and thank you for everything that you do for the community and for online. Everyone appreciates it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Z. This was great. And it was nice. Your questions were amazing. And this was like a great space to share with you.
Thank you, and I'll be in touch later about the Filipino restaurant that you and I are going to start
Yes.
together.
Can't wait to open it.
All right, all right. Assalamu alaikum, Laila.
Walaikum assalam.
Thanks again for joining us today. As a reminder, Halal Run is the number one guide to halal eating options in North America. We feature over 13,000 restaurants in 2,000 cities. You can find us on our website at halalrun.com, or you can find us all over the internet on all social platforms where our handle is at Halal Run. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe so we can bring you more content just like this. We are here to serve you. Until next time.